Hello everyone. Welcome to the Unit 5 discussion of Week 2. So far we have been discussing about the quality. We have also discussed about three quality aspects in our last three webinars. The aspect of validity, reliability and fairness in assessments. In this unit, we will focus on unpacking the meaning of difficulty in assessments. So at the end of this unit, you will be able to differentiate between difficulty and complexity in the context of assessments. So in general, we use these two terms interchangeably. Okay, but in the context of assessment, these two mean different concepts. Okay, and you will also be able to discuss that how understanding of assessment difficulty contributes to designing equitable assessments. And in our last unit, we have seen that equitable assessments actually leads to fairness in assessment. Okay, so probably if we are able to understand the concept of difficulty, you will be able to do a better job of designing equitable assessments and in turn designing assessments which are more fair in nature. Let us first try to see that what does these two mean. Okay. So what does complexity mean? Complexity refers to the cognitive demand of an assessment task. Okay, so when we say cognitive demand, what does that mean? The type of thinking required to complete it. For example, recalling a fact involves low complexity, while analyzing information or evaluating evidence involves higher complexity. Okay, so complexity is all related to the type of thinking that is required to reach to a response. On the other hand, difficulty refers to how hard or easy a task is for the students. Okay, and difficulty depends on factors such as background knowledge, familiarity with the content and the way the task is presented. Okay, so one example can be a low complexity question that includes unfamiliar vocabulary can be difficult, whereas the use of familiar language can make the same question easier. Okay, now you can see that this is all related to probably students' familiarity with the language, right? So it is not essentially related to the familiarity with the content, but probably more related to the background knowledge, right? Now, nowhere in this case, in this example, the way child is thinking, that is coming into picture, right? So, probably using these two examples, it is clear that the concept of complexity and difficulty are different. Complexity is related to the way of thinking, while difficulty is related to the amount of effort that is required, okay, to reach to the right answer, to provide a response to the question. We will see both these concepts through more examples and through more discussion in the subsequent slides. So, what does complexity mean? So, as per Anderson-Bloom's taxonomy, okay, so both of them have proposed revised Bloom's taxonomy in 2001. And what does this taxonomy suggest? It suggests that cognitive processes are arranged in cumulative hierarchical manner in terms of complexity. Cognitive processes are organized in levels from less complex to more complex. Okay, this hierarchy is cumulative, meaning that each higher level builds upon the previous ones. Okay. So, as per the taxonomy of cognitive processes, okay, there are 6 cognitive processes: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating and creating. Okay, and when we are saying that they are hierarchical, okay, and they are cumulative in nature, what does that mean? That probably to be able to understand something, we are required to remember a few facts. To be able to apply something, we should understand a few concepts well, and then only we'll be able to apply those concepts, right? And these cognitive processes are moving from less complex to more complex. So this suggests that probably understanding is more complex than remember, apply is more complex than remember and understand, analyze is more complex than remember, understand, apply, and so on, right? So the higher cognitive levels are more complex than the lower cognitive levels, right? Because these cognitive processes are actually related to the thinking processes, okay? So the kind of thinking that is required to provide a response to a question. Let us see through one example, okay? Now suppose, let us take one example from Python programming, okay? And say the course outcome is write testable Python programs using object-oriented programming principles, okay? Now what kind of, now you see, now this particular course outcome is mostly related to create cognitive level. If a student is able to write programs, okay, using object-oriented programming principle, probably this is related to the create cognitive level, okay. But to be able to create something, okay, it is a very, very complex process, okay. So to be able to create something, probably I need to remember something, I need to understand something, and then apply, analyze, evaluate, and then move to create, okay. So let us try to see examples of less complex and more complex assessment questions. Now, say there can be a question which is related to which among these is not a numeric type in Python: int, float, long, bool. Okay. Now, for such a scenario, probably student is just required to recall, okay, recall the concept of numerical type and give the answer, okay. So this kind of assessment is least complex. Then comes understand, okay, when the student is translating one form of understanding to another, okay, child is able to explain, summarize all of it. Now in this question, student is required to translate for loop to its equivalent while loop. So a for loop is given, student has to write the same code using while loop, okay. So in this case, probably we are trying to assess how far students understand these different looping structures, and if a student is also able to translate one form of looping structure to another. The third example is of apply cognitive level, where a child is able to write a program that receives the month and date of birth as input and prints the corresponding zodiac sign, okay. Now, student understands or writes an algorithm and then also able to write a very simple code for the given problem statement. Then comes analyze, okay. Now, what is happening? Consider the following piece of Python code. At the end of each line of the code, investigate the type of the variable defined in that line. For each line, what can be said about the typing rules of Python from these observations? Okay. Now, child is expected to analyze the code, okay, and then state the typing rule. Okay, now definitely this kind of a question is more complex than probably student trying to recall the type of the variable. Let us have another example of evaluate cognitive level, okay, wherein the student is expected to make a judgment. Which data type will be used to represent data variable comprising of date, day and month, list or tuple, okay. And student is also required to justify the choice of the data type, okay, which means the student has made a judgment and then also is expected to reason, right, justify. Again, this is more complex than analyze and apply. Then the last example is of create. Okay, say there is an algorithm, okay, for multiplying two large integer, and student is required to develop their own implementation of the same algorithm, right? Now this is way complex than say student's ability to translate for loop to while loop, right? So complexity is defined by the cognitive processes, okay, and we are using the framework of Anderson-Bloom's taxonomy, okay. They have suggested 6 cognitive levels, and as per this, the higher cognitive levels are more complex as compared to the lower cognitive levels. Difficulty, on the other hand, is related to the amount of effort, okay. One of the most widely used estimate of item difficulty level is the proportion of students who correctly answers an item, okay. So in this case, difficulty is estimated using student scores. So for example, if we have 20 students and out of 20 students, 15 students could respond correctly to a question, okay, and for another question, probably 5 out of 20 students could respond correctly. So how will we infer? Probably we are inferring that the question that is responded correctly by 15 students is easier as compared to the question which is responded correctly by only 5 students, right? So difficulty in both the situation is calculated by simply dividing it by the total number of students. So for question number 1, it is 15 by 20, and say in question number 2, it is 5 by 20, right? So it is more quantitative way of looking into the difficulty, okay, and such quantitative approaches like classical test theory, item response theory, these techniques are very frequently used to estimate the difficulty of assessment items. However, in this course, we will take a different approach, okay. We will try to look into difficulty as the amount of effort needed to answer an item. So now it is related to the amount of effort. So unlike complexity, where it was related to the way of thinking, okay, what kind of thinking process is taken by the student to construct a response. Here it is related to the amount of effort. So difficulty corresponding to an item, it can reside in the task, content, stimulus, or psychological construct. So we will try to see that what does each of these aspects mean. So if you are saying that difficulty can be a function of task, content, stimulus, or psychological construct, what does each of these variable mean? Probably understanding these variables will help us design assessments that are more equitable in nature. So, as far as task difficulty is concerned, it refers to the difficulty that the student face when they generate their responses. This can be related to the number of unknowns, the number of conditions, or numerical complexity. Another kind of difficulty can be related to the content. Okay, so what does that mean? It is related to the elements of knowledge, right? So it can be facts, it can be concepts, or it can be procedures. So which means what are the total number of facts that the student is required to recall for producing a response, or what are the total number of concepts that the child is required to use, what are some prerequisite concepts that are required to respond correctly to a question, okay, or if suppose there is a problem solving task or a numerical question, okay, how many procedures, how many steps are required to solve that problem, right? All of this is related to content difficulty. The third aspect is of stimulus difficulty, okay. Now, it relates to the manner in which the item is presented to the students, okay. It can be words, it can be phrases, or it can be information which is packed along with the item. So, you would have seen that sometimes we provide graphs, some kind of context is given to the student, okay. some stimulus which helps to stimulate thinking and then provide response. So this kind of stimulus also adds to the difficulty. Sometimes it adds to the difficulty. Sometimes if we are able to, suppose we are giving a diagram which is actually helping students reach to the answer in a better manner. So the diagram is acting like a scaffold, okay, to reach to the correct answer. So in that case, probably the difficulty is being reduced by the addition of stimulus. But stimulus plays a very big role as far as difficulty is concerned. The fourth aspect, which is of psychological construct, this kind of variable probably we cannot control, and having an understanding is helpful, okay. However, the aspect of task difficulty, content difficulty or stimulus difficulty, all of these, if we understand, probably we can make the item, the question more difficult or less difficult. What does psychological construct mean? It deals with certain learner dependent variables such as motivation, anxiety, openness to experiences, different kind of experiences. So certain students, they are not so open to new environment, and probably they might feel uncomfortable, and then they might find the task more difficult. The willingness to communicate, right? Working memory also varies from student to student. Task switching, a few students are able to switch tasks better as compared to other students. The ability to multitask, the aptitude, self-efficacy, openness, implicitness, all of these are learner dependent variables, okay. And probably we cannot control these variables, right? So it might happen that certain students are less motivated than others, okay, and therefore finding everything more difficult. So as faculty members, probably we can mentor them, but as far as assessment design is concerned, we cannot actually control these variables. But the other three variables, probably we can increase or decrease the difficulty based on the understanding of task, content and stimulus. Okay, so we'll see a few examples. So to summarize, what we have seen that there are certain variables that are likely to influence the difficulty of assessment items. Okay, one way to look into the difficulty is related to scores. Okay, which is very quantitative in nature. Okay, and this kind of difficulty is always estimated after the test is administered, right? So we cannot have any pre-facto evidences of difficulty in this situation. We are only dependent on student score to get an understanding of how difficult or how easy an assessment item is. Okay, so this gives us some post-facto evidences of difficulty because it is based on student score. And how are we calculating? It is calculated based on the proportion of students who correctly answer an item. Another way of looking into the difficulty is gathering some pre-facto evidences, right? When the question is not administered to the students, in fact, we are able to, as subject matter experts, we are able to gauge the difficulty of the question. Okay, one aspect can be dependent on the learner. Okay, we have seen some examples of psychological construct. Another kind of aspect, another kind of way to gather some pre-facto evidences of difficulty are learner independent, okay, which is related to task, okay, how many unknowns, okay, it is all related to the nature of the task, how many conditions, all of it. Similarly, the second is content, which is related to the number of facts, concepts, procedures. The third is related to the stimulus difficulty, which is related to the graph, passages, the diagrams, all of it. Basically, how the item is presented to the students. If the item presentation is adding to the difficulty or it is minimizing the difficulty. Now, let us try to see each of these, that is task, content and stimulus, through some examples. Coming to the first example, there are two questions on digital electronic subject. Okay, and if you read both these examples, probably it is very clear that they are related to the same concept. Okay, similar concept. However, it is very evident that the number of conditions are fewer in example 1, and therefore it is less difficult. And we understand that the aspect of the number of conditions or the number of unknowns are related to the task difficulty. So, example 1 reads, realize 4-bit binary to gray converter using only XOR gates. Design a 3-input NAND gate using minimum number of 2-input NAND gates. On the other hand, example 2 reads, design a synchronous mod 7 counter. To design this, use a JK flip-flop for the MSB, use a D flip-flop for the middle bit, and use a T flip-flop for the LSB. Do not use clear, preset, or any other asynchronous controls. Make sure that if through some accident the counter lands up in an unused state, the next state is 0, 0, 0. Show all design steps including a state table, relevant K-maps, and your final circuit diagram. Now, in both these examples, probably the student is able to design a binary system, a synchronous binary system. However, the number of conditions in the example 2 are huge. Okay, and to be able to design such a counter is way more difficult as compared to in example 1. Okay, though the complexity level of both these questions is the same, however, the difficulty level varies. Okay, moving to the second example. Okay, here on the screen you have 3 examples. Let us first read the first example. List down 2 applications each for 3 types of counter. The second example is, what is the advantage and disadvantage of ring counter compared to ripple counter? Okay. The third is, what are the modulo ring and Johnson counter? Now, all these 3 examples belong to remember cognitive level, which means the complexity is the same. Okay. However, as compared to example 2, number of facts are fewer in example 1. And as compared to example 3, number of facts are fewer in example 2. Which means, even though all of them belong to the same complexity level of remember, example 3 is more difficult than example 2, while example 2 is more difficult than example 1. So, in this case, the content difficulty is in focus, right? Because content difficulty is related to the number of facts, the number of concepts, also number of procedures. So, in this case, the number of facts being assessed for each of these examples varies, right? So, these examples varies with respect to the difficulty level. Moving ahead, again there are 2 examples. Okay. However, it is seen that in the first example, there is a schematic diagram given. Okay, and the students are required to derive the state table and state diagram for the sequential circuit shown in the figure below. Right. So, there is a diagram given and student is required to derive the state table and state diagram. On the other hand, in the second case, no sequential circuit is given to the student, right? In this case, student is expected to also design this kind of a sequential circuit. So, what does this read? Example 2 is, design a simplified traffic light controller that switches traffic lights on a crossing. where a north-south street intersects an east-west street. The input to the controllers is the walk button, pushed by the pedestrians who wants to cross the street. The outputs are two signals, NS and EW, that control the traffic light in the NS and EW directions. When NS or EW are 0, the red light is on, and when they are 1, the green light is on. When there are no pedestrians, NS is equal to 0, EW is equal to 1 for a minute, followed by NS is equal to 1 and EW is equal to 0 for 1 minute, and so on. When walk button is pushed, NS and EW both become 0 for a minute when the present minute expires. After that, the NS and EW signals continue altering. For this, traffic light controllers develop a state diagram, encode the states using minimum number of bits, derive the logic schematic for a sequential circuit which implements the state transition table. Now, in this case also, the student is expected to draw the state transition table like example 1. However, this context, this stimulus is way more difficult as compared to example 1. In this case, probably student is required to draw the sequential circuit themselves, right? So, 1 is related to the stimulus difficulty. Also, if you see the subsections, okay, the amount of responses, so there are 4 parts to this particular question. So, example 2 not only varies with respect to stimulus difficulty, but probably also with respect to task difficulty and also with respect to the content difficulty. Okay. Again, probably both the questions are of the same cognitive level, the same complexity level, but they vary with respect to the difficulty level. Now, the question is, how is understanding of difficulty helpful for us? So, using assessments of varying difficulty levels, but at the same complexity level, helps students achieve mastery of a competency and allow instructors to design equitable assessments for all students. Let us take an example to elaborate this further. For example, a student is required to analyze the performance of basic electrical circuits using fundamental circuit laws. Okay, so say this is the example. Okay, now for the same outcome, there can be 2 kinds of question. Okay, so on your screen there are 2 kinds of question, and it is very clear that question number 2. Okay, so the question which is on the right side of your screen, that is more difficult than question number 1, because it involves analyzing a multi-loop circuit with multiple voltage sources and a shared resistor, which requires applying probably both KVL and KCL simultaneously. Okay, solving coupled equations and understanding how changes in one component affect current distribution and power dissipation among interconnected loops. In contrast, question number 1 focuses on a simple series circuit where only one resistor value changes, requiring far less mathematical complexity and no intersection between circuit branches, unlike the question number 2 which has 2 loop circuit. Therefore, question number 2 demands deeper conceptual integration, more advanced reasoning and a broader evaluation of system-wide performance. Okay, so while the outcome remains the same, which is of analyzing the performance of basic electrical circuit, but we can have questions of different difficulty levels, so that we are aware that how far students have attained this desired course outcome. Okay, so we can confidently suppose a set of students are able to respond to question number 1 and not respond question number 2. There can be another set of students who are able to respond both question number 1 as well as question number 2. So the inference about their attainment of course outcomes will also vary. So to summarize, in this week's discussion, we have primarily focused on the quality of assessments. Okay, we have introduced three parameters as per ERA standards, which is of validity, reliability, and fairness. Again, let us try to revisit the definitions of validity. So, does the assessment actually assess what it intends to assess, which means validity is related to accuracy and precision of assessments. Similarly, as far as reliability is concerned, we are asking the question, would we get consistent results if the assessments were repeated under similar conditions? So, it is all about consistency and dependability of the assessments. A very crucial aspect that we have discussed, which is of fairness, it basically relates to the question, does the assessment ensures that no group of students is advantaged or disadvantaged by its design? In this unit's discussion, we have introduced the fourth aspect of quality, which is of difficulty. And difficulty is closely related to the validity of the assessments, right? So, assessment can be valid, but we can have questions of different difficulty level. All these questions can be valid. Okay, we can have say if the course outcome is pitched at understand level, right? So, all the questions of different difficulty level, okay, but belonging to the cognitive level of understanding are valid, right? All these questions are actually assessing what it intends to assess, okay. Only thing is, through difficulty, we are able to understand to what depth does the assessment assess what it claims to measure. So, it is related to the depth of the assessment, right? So, we can have several questions of different difficulty levels, but all those assessments can be valid, okay. So, this particular aspect relates to the depth of the assessment. So, with this, we have concluded the discussion on quality of assessments. In our next week's discussion, we will try to discuss different strategies of doing quality formative assessments.